weighing 357 pounds, Big Tan Tater.
In the professional wrestling world, there are a lot of big men with big personalities, but none was bigger than Big Tan Tater. Coming from a small potato farm in Blumpkin, Wisconsin, Tater took over the wrestling world. But eventually, self-destructive behavior cut his career short.
Damn it, Big Tan Tater, you son of a bitch!
Brother got so much heat, it was like he was an actual baked potato. I remember the Tater wanted me to cut his finger off for this program we were doing down in Texas. He was convinced that his finger would just grow back.
I remember when I first started out, Fern came up to us and said, "It's gonna be the body and the tater. You're gonna be meat and potatoes."
And then all of a sudden he pops up on camera and he's pill drunk. He did it all the time. That's why I told him I'd never work with him again.
I remember Andre thought that he was an actual potato. One night he got drunk and actually tried to eat him.
Hey, I'm Ricky. This is a very special episode of Suffer for Pod. I want to just talk about the biggest influence on my wrestling career, whether it's in the ring or just character stuff, doesn't matter. Big Tan Tater, we all know him, and I've been thinking a lot about him lately, I feel like he is the most underrated professional wrestler of all time. Think about it. You remember the program between him and Bret Hart back in the day where they played hot potato with the belt? But unfortunately, a lot of people like to talk about Big Tan Tater's downfall, his addictions. They'd like to talk about how Big Tan Tater got sent to a psychiatric hospital because he went starch raving mad. It's really disappointing, and I feel like we could really take some time to appreciate what he's done. It's time we gave him credit because there's so many imitators out there. So if you're thinking about checking out Big Tan Tater, just don't be a hesitator when it comes to watching his matches and studying everything. He was the best babyface. He was the best heel. If professional wrestling had a Darth Tater, it would be him. People, it's time to rehash our love for Big Tan Tater. At the time he got real hard into Miracle Grow, you could tell it was taking a toll on his body. My name is Vince Russo. I was Big Tan Tater's roommate through college. At this point, he was straight GMO, nothing natural about him. And eventually, bro, he hadn't been able to do what he used to do. Big Tan Tater could tell he was at the end of his career, and he knew that his internal clock was ticking.
Well, it's pretty obvious. When things start, they have this internal clock that eventually comes to an end. Everybody's career clocks are coming to an end real fast.
You know, in the ring he had to find other ways to make money. He had a plug at Monsanto, so soon he was selling all of that GMO shit, making shady deals. He'd drive his potato truck up across the border into Canada, and he'd smuggle it inside the potatoes.
I remember it was a mafia-style botched execution. There were just piles of gabagool everywhere, and Big Tan Tater was just sitting in his recliner, passed out with a bottle of Roundup in his lap. I remember we ran to the house of Big Tan Tater and OD'd. He was sitting there with that bottle of Miracle Grow between his legs, and we called an ambulance, and they got him to the ER. And we waited, and finally the doctor came out to the waiting room and told us, I've got some good news and some bad news about Big Tan Tater. The good news is he's gonna pull through. The bad news is he's gonna be a vegetable the rest of his life.
Hey, Mr. Potato Head! What do you got for us?
2 new Mr. Potato Head toys.
Donald Duck!
I got pro wrestling superstar Big Tan Tater.
Each with Mr. Potato Head. Take all the parts and put them together.
Where do the noses go?
Where noses belong.
Forget photos. Donald's almost Donald.
Big Tan Tater just did a gig and he's bleeding like a stuck pig, brother.
Turn your mouth. Mr. Potato Head, where's your other ear?
It's over here. Mr. Potato Head Toys from Hasbro.
You know, you can say what you want about Big Tan Tater, but he made stars out there. I mean, he did that 9-month-long program with the Carver, and you ask the Carver, he'll never forget that. I'm Big Tan Tater. I understand why. Carver was shook up when Tater left. Big Tan Tater always talked about, helping out the less fortunate. He always wanted to start an orphanage called Tater's Tots. And, Carver ended up doing that. Carver started up Tater's Tots, and it was a successful run for about a few weeks until, obviously, he's a Carver, so we ended up killing all of the children and butchering their skin into making his ring gear, but comes with the territory. We loved Big Tan Tater so much. Not much is known about the whereabouts of Big Tan Tater, but regardless, his legacy lives on. Last I heard, he cleaned up and retired back on the farm.
You know, I heard that Big Tan Tater is actually Big Van Vader. I mean, think about it. Vader wore a mask, Tater didn't.